When a quiet black teen in a hoodie walked into an elite Ivy League math competition, professors laughed until he picked up the marker. What happened next left the room stunned, and the nation inspired. This isn't just a story, a wake-up call. Watch how one underestimated genius rewrote the rules. Who let him in here? Those 5 words sliced through the silence like a blade. All heads turned toward the door of the grand lecture hall, where the annual Ivy Math Masters challenge was just about to begin. Professors in tailored suits, students in pressed shirts, and journalists ready with cameras. Everyone had gathered for what was supposed to be an elite competition of the brightest mathematical minds in the country. And then he walked in. A young black man, no older than 19, wearing a red hoodie and holding nothing but a worn-out calculator and a spiral notebook. He stood tall, calm, and unshaken, but in that room his presence felt like a storm. Some smirked, others whispered. Is he lost? Maybe he's someone's assistant. There's no way he's competing, but he wasn't lost. His name was Malik. Carter, a transfer student from a forgotten community college on the edge of the city. No fancy background, no private tutor, just raw talent, endless nights of self-study, and a fire inside him that wouldn't go out. Dr. Evelyn Sharp, the head of mathematics at the university and the gatekeeper of the event, stepped forward with arms crossed. Her silver hair and sharp glare added to her intimidating presence. "You're not on the list," she said, her voice cold but controlled. Malik didn't flinch. "I solved the qualifying problems you emailed out. I sent in my answers last week." The room went quiet. Dr. Sharp narrowed her eyes. She hadn't expected anyone from outside the academic elite to even attempt them, let alone solve them. One of the professors, Dr. Grant, pulled out his phone and checked the email submissions. After scrolling for a few seconds, his eyes widened slightly. "He's right," he muttered. "He scored higher than all the listed competitors." Still, hesitation filled the room. Rules were rules. Tradition was tradition, and Malik? He wasn't part of it. "Even so," Dr. Sharp said with a raised chin, "you're not officially invited?" Malik simply smiled and responded, "Neither was talent." Gasps echoed. Some students chuckled nervously. Even the cameraman raised an eyebrow. This wasn't just a math competition anymore. It was about to become a moment people would talk about for years. Dr. Sharp hesitated for a brief second. Something flashed in her eyes, annoyance or curiosity. She finally sighed and nodded. "Fine, you want to compete? Let's see what you've got." The stage was set. Cameras began recording. Students shuffled in their seats, and as Malik walked toward the front of the room, chalk in hand, he didn't look nervous, he looked ready. What nobody knew was that this wasn't just a test of numbers for Malik. This was his life, his story, his proof that brilliance doesn't come from zip codes or last names. And they were about to find out the hard way that underestimating him was their first mistake. As Malik took his place at the front of the lecture hall, the air grew thick with tension. He stood in front of a massive blackboard covered with half-erased equations from previous lectures, gripping a single marker like it was a sword. The professors took their seats, arms folded, lips pursed. The students leaned forward, hungry for what they thought would be a public failure. To them, this wasn't just a test, it was theater, and Malik? They assumed he was the joke. Dr. Evelyn Sharp stepped forward once again. This time, she was holding a packet, a thick stack of complex math problems, the same problems that had left graduate students scratching their heads for weeks. With a subtle smirk, she handed it to Malik and said, "Let's see if you still feel confident after this." He didn't even look at the pages. "I don't need the printed version," Malik replied calmly. "I've already seen these." A few gasps slipped from the crowd. Dr. Sharp's smile disappeared. "You memorized them?" Malik nodded. "All 12. I worked through them last weekend. But if you want me to solve them again, I'll do it differently this time, just to keep it interesting." A low murmur moved through the room. One student whispered, "Who is this guy?" Another scoffed, "He's bluffing. Just watch." Wick turned to the board. Slowly and deliberately he began to write. His handwriting was clear, each step elegant and concise. No erasing, no second-guessing. Just clean logic unfolding in real time. Line after line, equation after equation, he moved like someone composing music, not solving math. About 5 minutes in, a student leaned over to her friend and whispered, "He just skipped 3 steps, but still got the same answer." Her friend whispered back, "Yeah, that's actually more efficient than how we were taught." Malik wasn't just solving the problems, he was innovating. The silence deepened. Dr. Ron Baxter, who had taught math at the university for over 25 years, rubbed his chin and stared intently. He nudged the professor beside him. "That method he just used on problem 6, that's unpublished. It's a shortcut I only saw once, years ago, in a grad-level journal. And Malik, he hadn't even broken a sweat." When he reached the 10th problem, Dr. Sharp interrupted. "That one has never been solved correctly under timed conditions," she said sternly, crossing her arms. "You can stop now if you want." Malik didn't even glance at her. He finished the final line of the solution, turned around, and handed the marker back to her. "Problem solved," he said, without a hint of pride, just quiet certainty. For the first time all afternoon, the smirks were gone. Some students looked stunned, others embarrassed. He wasn't supposed to be the smartest person in the room, but the truth was settling in, and it was undeniable. Malik hadn't just earned a seat at the table, he'd built his own. The air in the lecture hall had shifted. No more chuckles. No more whispers. Only silence and the soft squeak of Malik's sneakers as he stepped away from the board. 12 problems. 12 perfect solutions. No calculator tricks, no guesswork. Just a mind that moved faster than most could even follow. Dr. Evelyn Sharp slowly walked toward the board, marker in hand. She scanned the first few problems, her eyes narrowing. She began checking Malik's work line by line, determined to find even the smallest mistake, an error in logic, a miscalculation, anything that could prove he got lucky. But mistake after mistake never came. In fact, something far worse for her began to unfold. His answers weren't just correct. They were brilliant. Malik had restructured certain equations in ways none of the faculty had ever taught. His use of non-standard substitutions, abstract mappings, and geometric intuition revealed not only correctness but creativity. This wasn't textbook math. It was math that danced. Dr. Sharp's expression changed from skeptical to stunned. She turned to the other professors. "Look at this," she whispered to Dr. Baxter, pointing at problem 8. "He didn't even use the standard proof. He invented his own." Dr. Baxter nodded slowly. "And it works. I don't even know how he spotted that pattern. It's rare." Behind them, the students, once so sure of his failure, sat frozen. Some had been recording the whole time on their phones, expecting a viral embarrassment. What they captured instead was history. Finally, Dr. Tom Reynolds, a senior faculty member who had remained quiet through most of the session, stood up. "Son," he asked, "where did you learn to do this?" Malik looked up. "The public library, YouTube, and, I guess, life." That answer hit harder than 100 theorems. Malik explained how he used to sit for hours watching old whiteboards on MIT's free online classes, how he taught himself calculus under dim lights after working shifts at a grocery store, how he used borrowed textbooks, solved problems on fast food napkins, and sometimes went to sleep hungry, but never without learning something new. He didn't have a tutor. He didn't have a set coach. He didn't even have Wi-Fi half the time. What he had was will. A student near the back, who had once whispered jokes when Malik walked in, now had tears in her eyes. Dr. Sharp set down the marker. She turned to the crowd and spoke, her voice much softer this time. "We judged him the moment he walked in. We saw a hoodie and made assumptions, but what we just witnessed is genius." Then from the back of the hall, a deep voice rang out. I couldn't agree more. Everyone turned. A man in a gray suit approached. He was from the university's board of directors, and he'd been watching the entire time. He stepped forward and looked directly at Malik. "How would you like a full scholarship?" Mentorship from our top faculty and a research position starting this semester? The entire hall froze. Malik's next words would define everything. The offer hung in the air like lightning waiting to strike. A full scholarship, mentorship from top faculty, a research position all on the spot. The entire hall turned to Malik, expecting him to smile, to cheer, to break down in gratitude. But Malik didn't say thank you. He didn't jump with excitement. He didn't even move. He stood there, quiet. Composed, then he looked the director in the eyes and said something no one expected. I didn't come here for charity. A wave of confusion washed over the room. I didn't come here for pity or praise, Malik continued, his voice calm but firm. I came here because I've put in more hours than you can imagine. Because I belong here whether you invited me or not. There it was. The moment. It wasn't about math anymore. It was about dignity, respect, recognition. For years, Malik had been underestimated by schools, employers, even people on the street. But he never stopped pushing. He didn't want handouts. He wanted fairness. Dr. Evelyn Sharp, who had tried to humiliate him only an hour ago, now looked at him with something new in her eyes. Respect. She stepped forward slowly and spoke, almost like confessing. You didn't just prove that you belong, Malik. You reminded all of us that talent doesn't wear a uniform. It doesn't come from money or elite schools. It comes from inside. One student in the front row, visibly shaken, raised her hand. Can I ask you something? Malik nodded. How did you keep going? Even when people didn't believe in you? He smiled faintly. I believed in me. My mom used to tell me, let their doubt be your fuel. Every time someone said I couldn't, I studied harder. I failed 100 times, but I never stopped showing up. A soft applause started. Then it grew, louder, stronger. Some students stood. Others followed. The same people who had looked down on him were now cheering him on. For the first time in the university's history, a competition that was supposed to measure math skill had turned into something far bigger. It became a mirror showing everyone what bias, assumption, and gatekeeping really looked like. Malik didn't just beat a math test. He broke a system. And as the applause roared, the university board director spoke again, this time with humility. We don't offer you these opportunities because we feel sorry for you, he said. We offer them because we need minds like yours, determined, disciplined, and unshakably real. Malik finally nodded. Asterisk. I'll accept it, he said. But only if you let me help others like me, kids who never get seen, who never get picked, who have the fire but not the chance. The director extended his hand. Deal. In that moment, Malik wasn't just a student. He was a symbol, a shift, a wake-up call. And his journey had only just begun. Weeks passed. But the moment Malik Carter stood in front of that blackboard never stopped echoing. It was replayed on social media millions of times. Students from different universities shared it with hashtags like #genius in die and #lettalent_speak. News outlets picked it up. Student from the streets outsmarts the elites. Math prodigy stuns Ivy League in a hoodie. But Malik didn't let the spotlight distract him. He walked the same halls now, only this time with the full respect of everyone around him. Professors invited him to co-host lectures. Students sought him out for advice. Even those who once laughed at him now waited in line to ask how he solved Problem 10. But Malik didn't forget where he came from. While juggling his classes and new research role, he quietly launched a project of his own, Numbers for the Next Generation. An online platform offering free math lessons, mentorship, and resources for underserved high school students, especially those from inner-city neighborhoods, small towns, and places the system always seemed to forget. He started filming tutorial videos with nothing more than a cheap webcam and a borrowed laptop. But soon, his subscriber count exploded. Why? Because Malik wasn't just teaching math, he was teaching belief. You don't need perfect grades, he'd say. You need hunger, you need grind. And you need to block out the noise that says you're not good enough. One video ended up trending on YouTube with a quote that became iconic. They judged me by my hoodie. I answered with my mind. Back at the university, Dr. Sharpu once doubted him the most invited Malik to deliver the keynote at the annual math symposium. Before he spoke, she introduced him with these words, "Sometimes it takes one outsider to remind an entire system what brilliance really looks like." When Malik stepped up to the mic, there were no nerves, no hesitation. He looked out over the crowd and spoke with quiet power. "I never wanted to be better than anyone. I just wanted a chance. But once I got it, I made sure no one could ignore me again." The audience rose to their feet. Students cheered, professors applauded, and far beyond that lecture hall, something bigger was happening. Kids in Detroit, Memphis, Oakland, and Baltimore were tuning in, not just to learn equations, but to believe in possibility. For the first time, they saw someone who looked like them. Leading the way, Malik Carter became more than a name. He became a symbol of what happens when talent meets opportunity. When the underestimated refuse to stay invisible. When one voice says, "I belong here," and makes the whole world believe it. Because at the end of the day, it's not where you come from. It's where your mind can take you. When a quiet black teen in a hoodie walked into an elite Ivy League math competition, professors laughed until he picked up the marker. What happened next left the room stunned, and the nation inspired. This isn't just a story, it's a wake-up call. Watch how one underestimated genius rewrote the rule. They laughed at him, they looked down on him. But when the numbers started flowing, the room fell silent. In a world that still judges by skin before skill, he reminded them that brilliance has no color. He didn't just pass their test, he rewrote it. Never underestimate the quiet one in the back of the room, especially when he's a genius. If this story moved you, drop a comment saying smart is strong, and share this with someone who needs a little reminder of their worth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the wick turn to the board. Slowly and deliberately, he begged *N anything that could prove he got lucky. But mistake after me.